Hey everyone, King of Miami here, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how to script this. So as you can tell, these are objects. This is a font made out of objects. So any player that jumps into this trigger, the trigger will take their name. The script will then translate their name into digits, and then the digits are used to spawn in each object from an asset object list. So let's go ahead and get started right after this intro. There is no intro, so let's start. This is going to be a three-part series. So in this first part, I'm going to teach you the bulk of setting everything up and the script that will get it to generate each player name dynamically. And then the next video will be spacing and alignment, where you can have right alignment, left alignment, center alignment, because some names are obviously shorter, some names are longer. And then in the third video, we're going to do kind of a use case videos and build different things and give you different ideas of how you can take this script and elevate it into other different use cases that can be also very creative as well. So it'll be 3 different videos, and we're going to start right here. All right, so to begin, you're going to need a font made out of objects. So all the capital letters, all the lowercase letters A through Z, then numbers, and then you're going to need the underscore, the dash, and the period, because those are the 3 characters that can be used in making and creating your username. As you can see here, I have a set. This is a synthwave font made out of objects. This one was created by Spicy. I'll put her tag here. She does have a couple different fonts, and she also does logos in Horizon Worlds. So you can reach out to her, add her as a friend in Horizon Worlds or her Instagram, and you can inquire for more details. So the reason I have 2 sets here is because even if you create your own font, which you can certainly do, you want to make sure everything is kind of uniform. And that we're going to cover mainly in the second video when we're talking about spacing and alignment. So we're not going to cover that in this video. But so the reason I have it grouped like this, because if you notice, the Y is always facing up. The Y positive is always facing up here in the XYZ. And so that's important because here you'll notice that they're different. So here's the Y is facing up, but then here it's facing to the right, and here it's facing to the left. So it's not uniform. And since it's not uniform, when we spawn them in on default, this one will be spawned in, this S will be spawned in like that. Or excuse me. This S will be spawned in upside down, which will still be an S. So that's not a good example. But for example, this I will be spawned in like this. And this A will be spawned in like that. So that's why I just went ahead and took this and I grouped it into these snap destinations to just kind of make it simple for me. And then again, I'll cover this in the second video of how to, you're going to have to add some at the bottom and at the top so they stay centered vertically at least. But we're going to talk about spacing and alignment and kind of how to prepare your font in the second video. But this is what you'll need to start with. You'll need a font with all the capitals, lowercase, numbers, underscore, dash, and period made out of objects. All right, so I'll just take a few of these. We'll do KLM. I will go ahead and duplicate this. And let's just say that you have your font made out of objects ready to go. Then the next step will be to create assets out of them. And if you don't know how to do that, I'll quickly show you here. So basically we're going to go here, open the properties panel. We're going to click on this icon as you hover over it. It will say new asset. We're going to create this into an asset. We'll leave the name K that I made, and then you have to choose a folder to put it into. So I have an ABCs folder. I also have a font folder. So we'll just pick a folder, and then you'll click on create. It'll take a second or two. And now it's stored this object as an asset in my font folder. So I can show you that now. All right, so if we go here to my font folder, under my folders for the assets, you'll notice we have the letter K here. I can hold this and this is what will spawn out. The same thing that we saved. And what we're going to use in a little bit, we're going to open this up and we're going to use this pill as the asset reference to connect our script to this saved asset object. All right, so what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and do this 2 more times. So showing you the process, once you have your letters and you have them prepped, you have to save them as assets. So that's what we're doing right now. This is the next step of the preparation. Okay, and then M, asset, font folder, create. Okay, so now if I open up my folder for font, we should see KLM. So those are our 3 assets that we're just showing. Here's my ABC's asset folder. So you can see here, I do have all the digits, all the numbers, A through Z lowercase, A through Z uppercase letters. They're all here saved. Cool. So you're going to have to do this one by one to save each individual letter. And I just gave you an example how to do that with these 3 letters. So we can get rid of these now, because now that they're stored, they can be pulled out anytime. So now that that's done, we can get to finally the first part of scripting, which will be this character list. So I'm going to show you what I've done, and then we're going to do it on a small scale to give you a feel of how to do it. So what I've done here, I created this script that on world start after 1 second delay, just to give it some time to breathe and get ready to work. This event will trigger my event, and my event is going to add these asset variables into the asset list, which I just named it character list. And this is, I named it capital A because this is the capital A asset object, the capital B, capital C, etc. So, and it has to be in this, I can put it in the specific order so it will match my other list, which I'll show you in a second. Just so you understand what's going on here again, after 1 second, this A was added to the character list in assets, and it's continuing to add every single character, A through Z capital, A through Z lowercase, then 1 through 9, 0, underscore, dash, period. So everything is added. It's 56 total items is added to the character list. These are all assets, asset variables that are added to the character list. Where do I get these asset variables? We have to create them. Here in the variables tab. And you can see here, you create each one individually, which we're about to do in a little demonstration here. But you can see I had to add every single one of them individually, so it'll take some time. So that's the first list. We have the asset list, where we will connect all of the assets of our font, of our alphabet. And then here I have a string list that we can open up. And right here, instead of putting it here, add to string list, which you can do, which would basically look something like this. We would add to this list a string. And here we'll put like capital A. So I can do it here on this left side as well, but there's really no need to add 65 more code blocks. This is here in the variables tab to create a string list and to manually click this drop down and manually add each one here. It's a lot easier. We don't have to add a bunch of more code blocks on the left side. We can just do it here. So here I have the same thing, A through Z, capital A through Z, lowercase, 1 through 9, 0, underscore, dash, and period. So the 2 lists are identical. They're set up identically. So they're both, so the period is the last, capital A is the first. Right here, the number 7 is the 58th position in this list. And same thing here. If we scroll all the way down, we will see that the number 7 is right here, which here doesn't tell us the index of where it's at positionally, but it is at the 58th position of this character asset list. So that is the next step. So I'm going to show you how you can do that from scratch, but this is how the final product would look. And I'm not going to obviously make the whole list because that would take a while and you guys will get bored. All right, so here, creator, we can completely start from scratch if we like. All right, so we're going to go ahead and pull out a script gizmo. All right, and I'm going to pull out a snap destination object because the only thing that's going to run on this is the script. We're not going to use it for anything else. So shout out to Sekik because I kind of got this idea from him when we were collaborating on the fireworks world. He would always use snap destination tools to hook up scripts to, and I thought that was more efficient from I was using, I think, spawn points. So this is obviously more efficient because you rarely use snap destination objects, but you do use spawn points, etc. So I thought this is a little bit better to signify, okay, yeah, that's running the script. So yeah, that's a great idea to do. Shout out to Sekik that's where I got the idea from. I'm not sure where he got the idea from, but that's where I got it from. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and open up the script. We will name this script. This will be just starter test, we'll call it. And then I'm just gonna do exactly what I did. So after 1 second, we're gonna send my event. When my event is received, we're gonna execute the following code. And we want to add to list. So here, you're gonna go into the operators tab, scroll all the way down, add to list. We're just gonna do 3 to give us that starting example. And obviously you just do it for the entire 56 items that will be added to the list. So it will take you a while, but we're going to go ahead and we are going to go to the variables tab. We're going to add a new variable, which will be an asset, which remember we saved KLM. So we're going to do K. I'm going to do L. That's not L. Capital K, capital L, and capital M are the 3 that I saved in my font folder. So those are my 3 assets. Okay. And I have to obviously reference them, which is why we have this. So when we open this up, we can go ahead and attach a script, which will be the starter test. And here we have the starter test, and we see we have 3 empty pill slots for these variables. So we're going to go ahead and open up our asset folder to the font. And here are my 3. So I'm going to click this M, scroll down, take this blue here pill and put it in there. So now M is referenced to my variable M, right? Variable M, we can name that anything, but obviously it's more organized to name it so you know what you're doing. And then here, I'm gonna take L, connect it to L, and then K, same thing. We're gonna reference K there. So now we've connected my assets that we saved, that were created and then stored into assets and now saved in my asset library. We are now referencing for them to be called and used here in the script whenever I want K to be used, L to be used, and M to be used. It's referencing these 3 asset objects. Cool. So now back to the script. We've connected our assets. And again, you're going to have to do that for, as you can see here, you're going to have to do that for every single character. 1 second, because it takes a while to load. There you go. So you can see I have the numbers. These are everything that's here is assets except for this one. This is a trigger, but everything else here is an asset from the font. Lowercase, uppercase letters, they're all there. So here again, we're just showing you how to do it, but just using 3 because we're not going to go spend the whole time doing this. You get the point. So now that we have these 3, we're going to add them to the list. We got to add them in order. So K would be first, and L, then M. And what list are we going to add them to? We don't have have a list yet. So now we're going to create a list of assets. We're going to call this, we'll just call it font. You can call it anything. So now we have a font asset list, and this is where I want to store, or the list that I want to put every one of these variables into. So a list just organizes everything, because these variables can exist without the list, and we can spawn in without a list. So a list is not necessary to spawn something in, but with what we are doing, so we can just go here and we can say, I want this to spawn in after 1 second. But obviously what we're doing is we're not just spawning things in, we're spawning specific ads in a specific order. So that's why we need an ordered list. We need something to organize all of our assets in one list. So that way, once we have everything in a list that's organized, we can access it appropriately to a player's name. All right, so now we have an asset list. Now we need, which will be the string list. And the string list is also going to be the alphabet. We'll just put ABCs. It's going to be the same as your asset list, but now in string form. So here we have KLM. So here we're going to have K, add new item, L, add new item, M. All right, so now we have KLM in our string list, or string text, and now we have in this font list, we're adding K, then L, then M. So now we have 3 items in each list. We have an asset list of 3 items, we have a string list of 3 items, and the K is the first one in that list, the L is the second item in that list, and the M is the third item in that list. So now we have 2 lists. One is in string version or string form type, and then we have an asset type list, but they're mirroring each other in a sense of we have the K version here, and then we have the K asset version here. And the thing that they share in common are their position, these numbers, these digits here. This is what makes the magic happen. And I'll show you that right now. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show you. So remember how we just made an asset list in the same exact order as a string list. So the character, in this case lowercase k, and the asset of lowercase k object are in the same position in the list. In this case, it happens to be position 36. So since they share the same position, we can therefore easily translate every character in a player's name into a number, and then we can translate that number into spawning in the object asset from the asset list at that same position. So it's simple as that. So basically, again, we're taking the player's name, we're translating each letter or character into the number of the position it is in that list. And then once we have all these numbers, we can spawn in the 36th position from the asset list, which is this asset lowercase k, the 34th position from the asset list, which is this lowercase I, and we continue through the whole process until the name is completely spelled out. So that is why we have 2 lists, and they are identical, and therefore they share the same numbered position in their respective list, and that way we can easily translate and transform a string named into, and then take that number representation of the name and use those numbers to spawn in the asset object equivalent of those letters. I know it's not, I'm over explaining it, but basically again, we translate every single letter or character into a number, and that number is then used to spawn in the equivalent of the letter, but in asset form, because the 2 lists are identical. So again, here, what we just did, we have 2 lists. We have this asset list, KLM, and then here we have the string list, KLM. So this is the string list. This is the asset list. And you see how capital K is 0, and then here capital K is also 0. So that is what we're doing. And in this case, for my list, the actual list that we used, um, you'll see here, if we scroll all the way down to the lowercase k right here. So if we scroll all the way down to lowercase k, you'll see lowercase k is 36. And so we have 36. Then lowercase I is 34. And we just continue. Lowercase n is 39. And so that's what's happening. So that's how the magic happens. And we're going to show you how to script that in this script, which is next. But that's why this is essential. That's why this setup is essential to be able to make those two lists and make those two lists identical. So now that we have completed that, we have the two identical lists, a string list and an asset list. Now what we do next is we need to send this information to an object. In this case, I'm using a trigger, right? This is a trigger that I'm grabbing the player's name from. So I need to send these two lists to that trigger. So we can go ahead and create an object. We can call it trigger. We can call it whatever. I'll call it trig. All right. And we're going to send it, I think, asset list. There we go. We're going to send this event asset list to the trigger, and we need to send it with the two lists. So that list and this list. All right. So now we're sending after the list has been created, and this list is already created because we manually created it, KLM. And this asset list, KLM, which is the font asset list. We're sending these two lists to this trig object. So now we have to define what is this trig object because right now it's empty. So we would just do this, take the pill from this trigger and plug it in there. So that's it. That's the setup. So that's how we do the setup. As you can see, I have it completely here where we started. I have the entire uppercase A to uppercase Z, lowercase a to lowercase z, and then of course the 1 through 9, 0, underscore, dash, and period. Those 56 characters make my character asset list, and I'm sending that list. And then also I'm sending the string version of that list, which again I showed you a couple times here, but just so you can see it again, I created it here, the full version. So I just showed you how to start it and how to make it in this little starter version, but this is the full version of how it will look. So you have it all there. All right. And you have to make sure everything is lined up. So I have 0 underscore dash period, 0 underscore dash period. So now everything is lined up correctly. And I'm sending these to list to outbound. I called it here outbound. And outbound will find once this loads. All right. Outbound here is trigger, and you'll see this connecting to this trigger. Cool. All right, so that's the first part of the setup. So we have our font. We created our font into assets. So we had our font. We created our font into assets. And then we created this script that is housing all of the assets and creates the asset list. And also we created the string list as well, and they're identical. So we have a string version and an asset version of all the characters, 56 characters. Cool. And I showed you how it happens. Now we're going to go ahead into the script that actually does the work and makes it happen. All right, so the first step, now that we have the list set up, is we are going to create the script that's going to take those two lists and do the magic when a player walks into the trigger. Cool. So I do already have the script created here, but we're just going to do it from scratch so I can kind of walk through the process as well. So we'll just name this, I like to call it Showrunner because it's what's running the show. So we'll just do show run in this case. So when world is started, nothing needs to happen. All right, first thing when we are getting those asset lists. So when asset list is received and it's being received with the asset list first, so we'll call this a list. And then it's also being received with that string list. You need to have both of these here. So we'll just have here string list, s list. Okay. So once I receive these two lists, what I want to do is store them so they stay in the script so I can call upon them anytime that I need. So we're going to go here and call this asset list. And then I'm going to call this string list. It's basically the exact same thing we just did. I'll just put ABC. It's basically the exact thing that we just did over there, except we're not going to generate or create the list in this script. We're going to take the already made list that's being sent to us, and now we're just going to set these two to take on the values that were sent to us. So that way we don't take up any space making the list here. We just got them sent over, and now we're saving what's sent over in this form and in this form, or in this asset list and in this string list. So even though here it says 0, what we just did with this code block is that we're saying, well, this list got sent to me, so I want to send this ABC list that is currently 0. I want to change that and update that to have this list and save it to this list. So now ABC list contains all 65 items that we have over there. Even though it says 0 here, it's starting at 0, but now we just updated it. So now it has 65. Cool. So let's go ahead, and now that we have the two lists, that is the first thing that happens. So the next thing that happens is when a player walks into the trigger. So we'll pull this out. So when the trigger is entered by player, what do we want to do? We want to do a couple things. First thing we want to do is we want to turn off trigger detection. There's other ways you can do this. We're just going to use this. So as soon as the trigger is entered by a player, we're going to turn off the trigger detection so I don't have a second player walking in 2 seconds behind me, and then I don't get to see my name because another player walks in, right? So we want to give it a cooldown time. So I don't want any more detection after a player walks in. And then what we'll do just for now, you can do it a lot of different ways, but we'll just do this. I think we'll do a refresh, and we're going to send this after 20 seconds. And so we're going to create this refresh event, and this refresh event basically is going to turn the trigger back on. So we're going to duplicate that in there. Okay, so after 20 seconds, we're going to send this refresh, and the refresh will set self, which is the trigger detection, back on. So we're turning the trigger back on after 20 seconds. So that's the first thing we want to do, right? All right, so since the player is now in, we want that player name. I'm just going to make a variable, a string variable of the player's name. Player name. All right, so now I have a string variable that's empty, right? So I want to set that, or I want to save that to not be empty, but not to be the name of the player. So we can click here, scroll down to the player and the operators, and you'll see the option for get name of player. Right there, name of player, name of the player that just walked into the trigger. So now we have set the player name in string version from the player that just walked in. So this is going to update. The next time someone else walks in, we're updating this player name to that player's name, and it just continues. All right, and you don't have to delete, and then you don't have to do that. You just have to update it. Okay, so now that we have the player's name, we need to translate this player's name into numbers. And there's a couple more things we're going to do. We'll come back to it in a second, but let's just move kind of forward in our thought process here. So after we have the player name, we're going to send an event. And this event, I already have it called translate. So we're going to send this translate event to self. And what we're going to do when we get that translate event is we want to take this player name and we want to um, translated into a numbered version. Okay. So now for translate, we obviously the goal is we want to take this player name that's in the form of a string, and now remember we want to translate it into a numbered version. So what we'll do, we'll create some variables first. These will be numbers. So let's create a number list. So this is name in number form. I'll just put name in num, and this is a list because it's going to be a series of numbers, one for each letter or character. So we have name in number version. So that's a list because that's what we want to do. We want to translate this string list or string name, which is a string of characters, into a bunch of numbers that are representing each character individually. So let's add an I for iterator because we're going to have to cycle through each letter in their name. Let's also create one called, just to kind of organize things a little bit, we're going to call this one length. We're also going to need, we are going to need index. Index of. Okay. And all right, so I think that's it for the number variables. We will add one more string variable, and this is going to be letter. We're going to call this letter. Okay. All right, so let's write this out. So when translate is received, first thing we want to do is I want to set this number length to the length of the name. And I'm just, you can technically should be able to do it without this, but I'm just doing it to kind of make things more understandable. So we have length of string, and this string is going to be the player's name. All right, so we're setting the length of the player's name, which is a number. We're setting that to this number variable length. And now we're going to do a while loop. So this while loop is going to execute a bunch of actions, and it's going to continue it in a continuous loop until this condition is no longer met. So what we want to do is we want to say when I is less than length. So here's our I, our iterator. While I is less than length, we're going to execute the following actions. So the first thing would be is you want to get every letter of each name individually. So to do that, we're going to try to pull in one letter at a time. So this is our letter variable, which is empty. And we want to set this letter variable to the first item in this string list of the player name. And remember, lists start at 0. So I want to, and I is currently 0. All right, so I want to set this letter to each character in the player's name, but one at a time. So we're going to set letter. Let's go down to the text section. Okay, substring of string. Substring of string. Okay. So I want to set this letter to the substring of this player name string from index. So that's what we'll use our iterator, because currently it's set to 0, and then it's going to go to 1, then it's going to do 2, then go to 3, with length of 1. With length of 1, because I only want to do one at a time. Because substring of player, like if we do length of 2, then it'll get like, it'll start from this index and then go get 2 items. So we just want 1 item, and that's this index, which is currently set to 0 from the player there. So I want to do that, and then we'll just do the iterator real quick because we want to go through each letter. So we're going to do a I plus 1, one of the more famous code blocks used, I believe. All right, so we have set I to I plus 1. So now we're going to continue setting letter to um, I is 0, then I plus 1. So we're going to set it to 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, 5. So when it's at 5, it's going to set letter to the string that is, or the character that is in the position 5 with length of 1. So just that one item. And that's where we're setting letter, the string letter to. We have that one item, that one character, I should say. And then once that's done, we're going to go I plus 1, and we're going to keep going until the while loop is completed, until we have got all the characters from the name. But obviously, we don't want just the letter, because the letter is not going to do anything. So once we have that letter, we want to get the numerical value of this character, this letter. And the way we're going to do that is we are going to set this index of, and now we want to see where this letter is in the string list. Because remember, we have the string list up here, which is every single character. So I want to know where this character is in that string list. So we want to do get item, or get index of, I should say. Okay, so index of item in list. So I want to get the index of this letter from not the player name, but this ABC list. Okay, so now first step is we're going to get one character or one letter. Once we have that one, the first one is K. Now that I have K in King of Miami, I want to set the number variable that we're naming index of. I want to set this to the number that this letter represents in my ABC list. So I'm grabbing the index, or the number of this K, lowercase k, in the ABC list, and we're setting that to this number. Now that we have it, now that we have the numerical representation of K in number form, and let me see if I can. All right, so let me pull this up real quick for you guys as we're doing this, so it can kind of make more sense. Because remember, we're actually scripting the magic now. I showed you how the magic happens. Now we're actually doing the scripting of it. So here's the lowercase k. So right now, that's what we're setting letter to. We're getting the first letter in my name, which is this lowercase k. That lowercase k is in this ABC list, because remember, we put all the characters in this ABC list. So I'm going to find the numerical value, or the position that this letter lowercase k is in this list. And I'm going to set that number to this variable index of. And that is number 36. So now that that's complete, now that we have the name completely in a numbered version, we want to start spawning things in. So the way we do this, we're going to send an event after all of this is done. So it's after the while loop is completed. We want to send spawn in, or spawn at letters. Okay, we're going to do spawn letters. So now when spawn letters is received here, we want to spawn in. We can either do an if statement or a while loop, but I think I want to do an if statement. So we're going to do an if, because I don't want it all to happen simultaneously. I want to give it that effect of a second delay between each one. So we're going to give it a condition similar to the while loop. So we're going to go ahead and go here. And instead of using I again, I want to use a different number variable. I'll just create a double I. So this will be my second iterator. And then I also want to prep it over here, and I want to set it to 0 in case it was already used before. All right. And we can set I to 0 up here as well for I. All right. So here we go. This is going to be length of list, which is a numbered list. Go here to length of list. And we're going to go through this number version of my name in numerical form, which is right here. So we're going to say I starts at 0, and then as long as I is less than the length of my name in numbered form, we want to perform the following actions. Cool? Okay, so now what I want to do first, we are going to get I'll just put char for character, and we will need an asset variable. So this will be, what should we call it? We'll call it assigned. Assigned asset. Okay, so what we're first is we want to set, we basically want to get, so now I'm dealing with, now we're no longer working with the string version of my name. We're working with this numbered version of my name, right? With this name in number list. So now we're working with numbers. So I want to set, what I want to do now, just kind of like we did here, where we went one by one and got the numerical value. Now I want to go one by one for this number, and I want to use set one by one each asset. And we're going to spawn it one at a time. All right, so this asset will change. So I want to spawn in K, then I want to spawn in I, then N, then G. So we're going to use these numbers to do that, right? So I'm going to set this variable character number to, we're going to go ahead and get item from list. We're going to get this I from this list. Okay, so because we're starting at 0. So we're going to get the number that's in position 0 in this list, which is number 36. So now this character variable number is number 36. So I'm going to take this number 36 and I want to use that to assign this letter or character asset to a specific character from the character list, from this asset list. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to do the same thing, but we're not going to get it from that numbered list. Obviously, we're going to get this asset from this asset list at this position. So the first number is 36. So this first line is getting the first number in the list, which is 36. Then I'm going to give the value of what asset this assigned is to the 36 item in the asset list, which happens to be K, right? Well, it doesn't happen to be, it purposefully is K. And so now K is here. We haven't spawned it in yet, so that would be next. So we can go ahead to here, scroll down. This is the actions tab. And we're going to spawn it in with a callback. And now we're going to spawn in this asset, assign, which is K. And then it's going to do +1. So now it's going to take the second item, which is 34, and it's going to assign this variable to 34, and then it's going to reassign this asset to the 34th item in the asset list, which is this I, and then it's going to spawn in I, and then it's going to add +1, which is then this n, and it's going to get this 39 number. It's going to take the 39 number, and it's going to now get the 39th position asset list and assign that to be the asset, which is n, and then it's going to spawn in n, and that is what's happening here. Got it? All right, and now that is the essence. What I've done also, I added sound effects, so we can do that here as well. We can play sound effects, visual effects. So I'm going to play a sound effect, and we'll create SFX here. Cool. And then we are going to, because we're making this into a loop, right? Because if we leave it there, it's going to stop. But we want to continue this process until it goes through every single letter or every single number in my name in numbered version list. So I'm going to send it after 0.5 seconds. So 0.6, change it back to 0.5. So it's going to spawn in K. Then after 0.5 seconds, it's going to go back to the top. But now this time I is no longer 0 because we added 1. So now it's 1. And it's going to go through the whole list again, spawn in I. And after 0.5 seconds, it's going to go to the top. And now this is 2. It's going to spawn in N, and then G, and then underscore, then O, then F, then etc. And I'll go through everything until the list is completely done. All right. And then when the list is completely done, this will no longer be true. So it won't execute. It won't spawn anything else in because this will be false. And then we can do an else. And then the else, we can also do a send event or another thing like an effects, whatever you like. It's completely up to you. You can do play visual effect, and then you can add an object here to play a visual effect. I have a firework that I did. VFX. Okay. All right. So this is the essence of it. We're not completely done, but this would get your name spawn. But then we need to delete. So this is the main part of it. There's one thing that's off here, and that's the position, because we don't want every asset to spawn in at the same exact position. So we just need to make a little adjustment for that. And I'm going to talk about more about that in my next video. But since I already have the script already done here and running, I want to show you. So here we can see I use a little bit different names. So I use letter from, letter at, and then spawn in letter at, and then I plus 1, then spawn in letters after 0.5 seconds, and I added haptics here and a sound. And then I have some other code here if after it's over. So play sound, and then here I'm setting an event to play the fireworks. And then this is just these two things here are those visuals of my name and my name in numerical value is those two things here. You don't need that at all. That's just for the teaching purposes of this video. Okay, so here I added this bit of code for spacing. So basically I am setting the position. So instead of it being 0, 0, 0, I am creating a position. And after each letter, I am saying move this new position a little bit to the right, and that will be the position this letter spawns in. And then when it goes through the process again, it's going to take that position and move it a little bit more to the right, and then that's going to be the position this letter spawns in. And it's going to continue. That's why it's going in that direction. In the next video, I will talk about spacing, alignment, and all of that. So, because that's a little bit more detailed and complex, but this video, I wanted to show you how it works and how you can do it. And then one more thing here that you should also know is the delete aspect of it. So here, let's go ahead and cover that as well now. Okay, so let's cover this last part as well. So I want to create an object list, and these will be assets that are spawned in. I'll just do SPI. And so what happens here is you can see that when you spawn in an asset, there's a position, which we just talked about, and we'll talk about more, a rotation, a scale, and then you can send a callback event. And I think I already have this one, obviously. Let's see, spawn in, okay, to self, okay? So basically, every time you spawn in an asset, it will send this event with the object version of this asset. So it's going to assign it it's going to assign this. So this K is now seen as an object in the world, right? So when I get this spawn in event, I am receiving it with an object, and I'll just call this asset. Doesn't matter what you call it, but it has to be an object. So when K is spawned in, it's going to send this spawn in event. And here it is. When I receive spawn in event with K, which is the asset, I want to add that to this object list like that. So we're using object here, but it is the K asset object. And then I'm going to add that to this list. So as each letter is spawned in, it's going to send this event, and this event is going to add the new letter to the list. So I'm going to have a list of objects of all those things. And that's important because we're going to use that list to delete anything. So now let's go back to when we enter the trigger. So here we can say if a player enters the trigger, and let's put it here. If a player enters a trigger, can I reuse some? I can reuse it. Can I copy that? Thank you. And we're going to say if the length of this asset, excuse me, object list of assets that were spawned in, if the length of that is greater than 0, then we know somebody already has their name out there. And if somebody has their name out there, I want to delete that name before I spawn in the new name. So we can go here, send event to object, and this will be delete spawns. And for delete spawns, when that event is received, I want to go ahead and we're going to do another iterator, another while loop. I guess this could be double I, doesn't matter. Another, I don't know, I like to use different iterators. It just keeps me organized, I guess. So I'll use D for delete. And so while that, I need +1, we'll reuse this one. So set D to D +1. And we are going to get the delete code block here. And we're going to do get item from list. And there we go. So when the player walks into the trigger, if there are objects in this list, that means somebody's name is out there. And before we put someone else's name out there, we want to delete these objects that were spawned in. So we're going to send this event. This event is going to go through every single object in this list. And then what we need to do, once that's done, we need to clear this list like that. Cool. So then we're going to delete every single character that was spawned in as an object. And then we're going to clear that list completely. So then the news person will be able to walk in, and it will delete the previous person's name, and then their name will go ahead and spell out. All right, cool. So that's pretty much it. There's a little bit more you can do, and um, I'm gonna cover some of that in my second video. I didn't want to make this one too long, but in the second video, I can show you what we can do for spacing, different alignments, and even prepping of some of the letters, or start to do different things with the letters. That's pretty much it for this video. In the next video, I'm going to talk about some other of the intricacies and different things you can do to set up. I'm also going to mainly focus on the alignment, left alignment, center alignment, right alignment, spacing, and also prep of the different assets. If you wanted to make them animated or do different things, we'll cover those options in the next video. And then again, in the third video, complete I'm going to completely elevate this. So I'm going to have different creative ideas that you can take this script and elevate it, but really elevate the use case of it more than the script itself, because the script is pretty much going to do very similar, or if not the same thing. Just maybe we might tweak a couple things, but then the use case for it and how we present um, what's happening can be very creative as well and have different use cases. So I'm going to create like 5 different use cases, and that will be the third video to kind of show you what you can do with this type of script. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe. Please follow. And look forward to seeing you guys soon.